What's up, everybody? Jensen Cummings here. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. Today is Best Served Podcast 223, and this is day 5 of Restaurant Marketing Week. We are focused on in-store engagement, in-store promotions, the opportunity to get butts in seats, and how we go about that thoughtfully so that we can actually start capturing those ride or die regulars, because they are the lifeblood of sustaining restaurants, and we need them more now than ever. And we want to make sure that we are continuously, thoughtfully cultivating those relationships and the opportunities to survive and thrive in these tough times. So we're going to be talking about what is an in-store promotion? What is the opportunity that you're creating? How do we go about that in a meaningful way that also is not diminishing the value of your brand, that is not necessarily coupon pinching? So I want to get kind of the core of that. We're also going to talk about the way we go about selling out events. I think right now that is hugely important, especially some of the virtual side. So we're going to dig into that a little bit. And then as always, I want to touch on the storytelling, the hospitality, the relationship building that is the foundation of restaurants that we need to continue to work on and figure out new ways to go about that, as things are just different. They just are. So with no further ado, I want to bring in Channing Fawcett of Stratecute to talk to us a little bit. Channing, thanks for being on.
Hi, Jensen. Thanks so much. I'm super excited. And also, I'm not going to lie, I'm extremely nervous. So
me too. Let's just do this. It's just you and me.
If you catch me umming and mumbling, just kind of wave at me a little bit.
I got you.
So I'm super excited to be here. And as you mentioned, we're going to talk about in-store promotions. That's going to be my focus today. And to start, I really want to define what an in-store promotion means.
Please.
So an in-store promotion is any offering outside of the standard menu and pricing that is designed to get people inside the store, so inside the brick and mortar store, and have them complete a goal or a task. And I say a goal or a task because when someone's in the store, once we get them in there, we need to tell them as the business, as the company, what we want them to do. So just coming in there isn't enough. We need to decide, are they going to stay, and are they going to have a 3-course meal, or are they going to have cocktails? Are they going to do both? Are they going to sign up for an event? So we need to decide what that goal, the actual promotion, is. So, and with that, I do want to debunk, if you will, the sort of popular belief that promotion means discounting. It is not.
Yes.
So the word promotion itself is the act of making people aware and sharing information publicly. So I kind of want to relate to, we all remember the days of nightclub promoters. Like, they ran around with those flyers and you'd find 5 of them on your car, right? And they're all over the parking lot.
Making them as you walk down the street in Vegas. Yeah, we know those guys.
Yeah, exactly. So that's promoting. So just to be clear on that. So it doesn't mean discounting, but there are different examples of what you could do for promotion. So for example, you could discount, but you could also bundle things together, value bundling. Which is a really great tool that a lot of people I don't think use enough of. It could just be simple as promoting a certain menu item. Maybe you're testing something, whether it's food or beverage or a certain holiday event. So those are just a few examples of promotions. And I kind of came up with one just kind of off the top of my head that we'll refer back.
I'm gonna pause you real quick before we get into specific examples. So I want to unpack this for people a little bit. The first thing that when we're thinking about that in-store promotion is the goal piece, as you mentioned. There needs to be clarity around that. And this is so often you see in restaurants where it's just like, we just did this thing because we are so instant gratification. We are knee-jerk. We're like, go, we need to sell this thing, go do it. And then we put the things out there that are not clear, and internally the staff doesn't understand it. They don't know how to process it. They don't know what the clear call to action is on the guest side, and it's clumsy. There's friction created internally, and then when we get that guest actually in the door, it's hard enough to sell through a promotion and get them in the door. If we don't understand it internally of how to process it and make sure that we deliver on the promise that we've now made, that is a huge vulnerability that restaurants had. So the goal that you have, and I like how it's like you read the Webster's dictionary definition of it, because I think we need to go back to that simplicity, because sometimes we just assume we know what that means. Oh, we're doing the Taco Tuesday promotion because LeBron James made it super famous, and we're just going to like go down that rabbit hole, but we don't understand what we're actually trying to deliver on. So I think that's super important. I don't know why I talked about LeBron James, but there it is. So so see, I'm nervous too, Channing. I'm babbling about LeBron James. This is how we do this show. That's real talk. So take us there now. Give us a specific example. Let's go down a rabbit hole and kind of understand how you're thinking start to finish of executing on a promotion.
Yeah, so you're about half a step ahead of me. So that was my next point, is how, after I was going to give this example, it's like, how do we create this in-store promotion, right? So I broke it down into 4 basic steps, if you will. And so the first of that is, like you said, this offer or this goal. So what is it that we're trying to do? Why are we doing it? Is it around some sort of holiday or event? Or are we trying to increase profits for something? So what is the goal, right? And so the example that I put together was for a steakhouse or even a bar if they wanted to do this, but a sort of steak and wine dinner pairing. And that's an example of a bundle, right, that a steakhouse could do. And to take it even a step further, June happens to be National Steak Month. So now we have this occasion that we've created a promotion around, and it will run the full month. And it's this steak and wine pairing. And beyond that, I want to be clear with restaurants too that you're not just selling this product, you're selling the experience, right? And beyond the experience, you're selling the expertise. So as the steakhouse selling this wine pairing, I'm telling you as a consumer that I have the expertise and I know what wine is going to pair best with this steak based on the fat content or the topping, the sauce, butter, whatever. So that's the first step in an in-store promotion, is determining what your offer is and what the goal is. What do we want people to do when they come in the store? The second part of that is exactly what you said, was the messaging. We have to be clear. So I was trying to come up with an example. Maybe you can too, like you said, your Taco Tuesday, that we're not clear with what we want the consumer to do, and when the promotion is, what the promotion is, how much it's going to cost, and what we want them to do. It's going to be useless, because I can't tell you how many times you read something, you're like, I don't understand. And then now there's this negative or neutral subconscious experience you have with that brand, whether it's a restaurant or retail or whatever. So we need to make sure the messaging is clear. And the best way to test that is to just ask your consumers, hey, I put this out here. What does this mean to you? What do you think is going to happen? And just survey a few people briefly before you start blasting this message out. Because like you said, we know in our head what it is, but sometimes we have to look outside to make sure it's correct.
Yeah. And actually, I would even layer on that. Sometimes in kind of leadership or whoever's in charge of that function of the promotion, we don't even check with our teams. And a lot of times our teams have the ability to kind of understand it and contextualize it for the guest experience, or what it's going to mean for the cooks in the kitchen. And so like you have a whole bunch of apparatus that you can use internally and externally to create that clarity. Because then what happens on the flip side of what you're talking about that I think is so important to recognize is you hear this all the time. We've done a couple of promotions. They don't work. Promotions work. Full stop. They work. You did not work it correctly. And so the mechanism of promotions is timeless. They work to differing degrees for different concepts. They work, period. You know, how much you're going to make off that, whatever, those transactional executions are different, but they work. So I think that's super important for people to understand. Promotions work. We're not trying to convince you that promotions do or don't work. They work. You just need to figure out how to get them to work for you, for your team, for your guests, for your community, for your steak and wine concept. So I really appreciate the direction you're going. Keep going. I love this. This is awesome.
Well, and to your point, it needs to fit the brand. It needs to fit the brand and needs to fit the consumers. So again, the offer and the messaging, making sure it's clear. It doesn't make sense for a seafood restaurant to all of a sudden start offering everything that's not seafood in their promotion. That's not what they do best. Right. So it needs to fit in the brand. So we talked about the offer and the goal. We talked about the messaging, right? And the next step is, how do we get that messaging out there? So the actual marketing component, right? And
distribution, key.
Yeah, where a lot of people struggle, and I kind of broke this down into 3 main parts, if you will. It's digital, which is the most obvious, right? So social, website, anywhere, and most of this is free for a lot of people. You already have these tools at your disposal. It's free to start these accounts. But when you're doing it digitally, the messaging has to be clear and the same across all of those, and the messaging has to be consistent. So you can't just post once on your Instagram and expect everybody to show up. It has to be constantly going at the right time and making sure you're using those tools correctly.
Yeah, I understand the platform. We've talked about that. Harken back to day 4 social media. We talk about that pretty heavily. So I think that's very important. That's a good point.
Yeah, so using digital to your advantage, and then physical. I know physical is a little hard right now because, it's all
Right.
sanitizing and one touch, but you can still use, there's papers you can use. You can print once, you can break your 8.5 by 11 into 3 or 4 sheets, whatever you want. But we can get creative. I mean, whether it's writing on the to-go or delivery bag about this promotion that you're having, for every delivery that goes out, that's an opportunity. Posting something on the window so when people go by, or on your sandwich board, and having that constantly. And something that crosses between both digital and physical is the menu. And this is something
Right.
people forget. The menu, which I have a personal passion and love for menus, is the one piece of marketing material that everybody is going to look at. Not just when they get in your restaurant, but also I wish I would have looked at the statistic to give you the real numbers, but there is a statistic out there. Something like 80% of people will look at a restaurant menu online before they ever decide to go there. So
Oh, yeah.
big opportunity right there to market whatever you're doing, whether it's a new item or this like steak and wine pairing event that we have. I'd start marketing it in July, or excuse me, May. May comes before June. I know my calendar. Again, nervous.
I hear you.
So marketing ahead of time, but there's an opportunity there. And the third piece of that marketing is verbal. So training the staff, making sure the staff is behind it.
Yeah.
And I've seen events fail at bars and places because the owner and the manager are super excited about it, but the staff isn't. And so they don't tell anybody, or consumers see something and they ask about it, and then the staff is like, I don't really care.
Yes.
So you have to have buy-in. And to go back to what you said about asking our staff, hey, does this messaging make sense? This promotion, if you get them involved, there's just more opportunity for them to be excited down the line. And so
Hugely important. 2 things you just threw out there that I think people really need to hover on for a moment. The menu. Go back to day 2 of Restaurant Marketing Week, where we talked digital presence, and we basically said stop using PDF menus on your website because they do not work. People cannot interact with them. The SEO Google does not crawl your site and be able to pick up those keywords. They don't know that you do Taco Tuesday. So I think that's super, super important. The second part is the most valuable asset that we have in restaurants, and the most undervalued asset that we have in restaurant is our people. And the fact that they can be a part of both development and then the execution, because too often we've seen this in restaurants. Somebody shows up to their shift on Tuesday and doesn't recognize that we started this thing because LeBron James told us to, and they're walking into it blind. They feel uncomfortable. They feel nervous. They feel like they don't know the story, and then they're just selling whatever is on the plate, and it just never quite works. So I really appreciate that as well. This is really great. Last thoughts. What else do we need to be thinking about? This is awesome.
A few more things. To your point, we talked about messaging being clear, right? Just like you said, we need to be clear with the staff too, making sure that we're communicating as much with them as we are with the consumers, to make sure they know when does it start, what happens, all of those things. So just to recap really briefly, how to create an in-store promotion: offer and goal, messaging, marketing, and the last piece is exactly what you said, is the execution. So if we don't know how to execute it, if we haven't trained our staff, if it's not clear, everything else, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter all these things we did. We just created a negative experience for the guest. And like you're talking about, the point of this promotion is to get people in the door, to give them an experience, show them what you can do as a restaurant or a bar, create that trust, right? And create that customer retention. And if you can't execute it, whether you did your logistical math wrong, this is something that a lot of people forget, is that if you only have 2 fryers and you're holding a fry special, then you can only fry so many things at once. So you have to think about the logistical side, not only in the front of the house, but also the back of the house, and what you're selling and how and where those bottlenecks and pain points are. So offer, goal, messaging, marketing, and execution. And I did put this out in the universe, and someone asked me a question, how do I know it's working, right? And so how do I measure this? And this goes back to the goal. What was the point? So for my steak and wine dinner example, maybe my goal was just to sell 100 steak and wine dinners. And
Sure.
super simple. And this is
I
something
like
else,
that.
yeah, that people get really caught up in, especially with social media and digital, but caught up in just, well, I want to increase profits and I want to increase revenue and I want to do this and I want to do this. Pick one goal and
Be
focus your
specific.
effort.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the what is it? The SMART goals acronym. Be specific with your goal and focus on that one thing and really measure that. And then you can look at the peripherals. But the easiest way to measure with a lot of these, and it'll change based on whatever your promotion is, but I would personally is to create a button specific in the POS that is very clear about what I'm offering and what it is, so that I can always go back on the back end and pull that report and see what times were people ordering it. If it was a margarita, for example, and I would put promo margarita or promo prickly margarita, whatever. So I
Yep.
know during this time in October that I sold X number of margaritas and I sold X number per day. And it was more during lunch than it was evening. And then that can give me an idea, okay, how much money did I make? How many did I, go through all the ROI on that.
Channing, you are well prepared. I love it. I love how you recapped. That's speaker 101. Tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. You're perfect. Nervous? I don't buy it at all. I don't buy it at all. That was really great. Channing Fawcett, consultant CEO of Stratecute, based in Denver. Thank you so much for sharing. This was great.
Thanks, Jensen.
All right, have a great day. All right. We are going to bring in our next guest right off the bat. We're gonna dig a little bit more into kind of the event side and kind of thinking about the strategies around selling those. So with no further ado, Ashley Oakes Scott of AOS Marketing. Thanks for being on.
Yes, of course. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited.
All right. So Channing, amazing job laying groundwork for us. Really just, it seems so simple. Like, yeah, you should know that you should have a goal for your promotions, except we don't. We just don't. That's the reality of it. We just continue to like churn and chum through people and promotions and don't quantify them. We don't qualify them. We don't set goals. We don't have clarity. People don't know what's going on. So now let's say we have that in place. We are a pretty well-oiled machine when it comes to the ability to put out a promotion. Now I want to talk specifically about events, because now we're talking a little bit different than a single individual making a decision to engage with us on that dinner. We're trying to sell a multitude. So there's a lot of layers of that. And events are so important for a restaurant to be able to sell 20 tickets, 25 tickets, 50 tickets. And so I want to start with the mentality and approach, and then let's get practical. And then I really want to spend some time on virtual dinners, as there is a huge need and opportunity right now. And a lot of them have been clumsy. They've been difficult to execute because we don't have that butts and seats. We don't have them in our space, and we can't kind of control and
and it's new. People are working through it. They're not really able to even, know how to do it because they've never done it before. I think the biggest thing that restaurants fail on is, like you guys talked about a little bit, is that menu side. Like, what is this event actually going to be, and what are the different components of the event? Sometimes people get a little bit too carried away with like, wouldn't it be cool if we did this? What if we did this? And then they forget about the actual cost of that is maybe going to help sell the event, but are you putting that into the purchase price of the ticket or in the menu price? So I think really going back and saying like, what is my ROI going to be on this actual event? If it's just about brand awareness, great. But in the end, that's not really what we're here for when we're a restaurant. We already have slim margins. So let's look at like, are we actually going to be making money off of this event? Because if we're not going to, then what is the point of doing it really? So that's something that I always talk to about my clients, because they get super excited about something. And then in the end, it's like, okay, well, why are we putting all of this effort in when we could probably just do like an in-store promotion? If people want to purchase it, then here you go. So
we have shiny object syndrome in restaurants. We just chase shiny objects all the time. It's part of our nature.
Always.
It's one of the,
and I love it. It's fun, but like,
right. And it's one of our strengths actually, because our ability to be so in the moment is what allows us to kind of interact with our guests, interact with each individual plate, and have them be their own experience, because we are so chasing that one moment and that one moment. So we're not thinking long-term or big picture. Yet to your point, it's a vulnerability then that we need to work through. So keep going. This is great. I love where you're at.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, that's the biggest thing. And then the other thing is sometimes people just want to throw together something and they're not really actually thinking about like, what does the guest want?
Yeah.
What is something that's unique? What is something that like, they're not going to just come in and get this every day. So it goes back to really talking to your customer. And obviously right now there's less customers in seats right now. So talking to them is a little bit harder, but those ones in your restaurant are probably a little bit more of those repeat customers that are really caring about you. So really just talking to them, like, what would you guys love to see here if we did some sort of event? Because in the end, they're the ones that are buying the tickets. So really having that communication online in the restaurant, making sure that, even if you have an idea, ask a couple of guests that are in and say like, hey, would you come to something like this? And if they're like, oh yeah, then you have a good idea. So I think that's sometimes what's missed is really talking to the customer. It's just this kind of like motion of like, get the food to them, see you later. And we really don't have those conversations sometimes. It's like Twitter. Like a lot of people will go on Twitter and not have that conversation. And then you're not really, so it's like, it's the same way in person, so.
I'm interested in that, the psychology of that, because I'm always trying to break down the psychology because it's all human interaction. The steak and wine dinner doesn't actually matter. It's something to the relationship that you're building that allows the opportunity for, right? And so for restaurants, is it because there seems to be an expectation that restaurants are the place that you go and we're the ones that have figured out the experience? And so we should already know. Does it seem like a weakness that we then ask our guests because you're supposed to be the expert on creating these dynamic experiences? And if you're asking me, I'm just Joe Schmo. What would I know? They see it as a weakness. Yet for me, I think it's a dialogue. It's like finding that sweet spot.
Exactly. And it's also like, maybe having an idea and just throwing it out there to some guests and, the ones that are in there regularly.
Yeah.
But I think that's a great initial start. Something else that I've seen that's really successful for restaurant events is who are those brands in town, those vendors that you partner with on a regular basis where you could really partner with them, make them shine too, and showcase them in this event. Like, is there an olive oil company in town? Is there a bread company in town where, that's incorporated into the event? And now it's not just you and your followers and your email marketing list. It's also theirs because they are also getting recognition for this event. So sometimes we forget that the cross promotion is really going to elevate you. And it's just spreading the event even further. So I always try to find a way we can do that. Something else that I've seen a lot of clients do is, going back to that alcohol distributor, if it's going to be a wine dinner, if it's going to be a beer dinner, how are we going to get them involved? Because they always have SOMs available. If that's not something that you have in-house, they always have some sort of promo that they can do with you to help cut costs on that, so that event, dinner and that event actually does make money for you. Because in the end, a lot of these events, the costs add up. So you really have to have that fine line of like, who's going to partner with me and who's going to help me with these costs. And, it's just like a co-partnership. They're there at the dinner, they're explaining what they are doing. They're having a way and a location to do this. So I think it's a winner for both sides of it when you do that.
The communication part there, I think, is key. I think part of what Channing and I went back and forth on too makes a lot of sense is that we do this in a vacuum. Whoever's in charge of that just like scribbles it down, doesn't talk to anybody about it, doesn't engage with the guests, doesn't engage with their team, doesn't create the clarity of the goal, clarity of the message, and then throws it out there and then blames promotions because they didn't actually go through it because they were supposed to do a promotion, yet it was an obligatory thing that you do versus something that you actually invest in. And the point that you're making now is like, you're not on an island. There's a lot of other people within your community, within that ecosystem that you have, that are also invested in your success and allowing them the opportunity to further invest or bring their skill set. Maybe they have a massive marketing machine and you're great once you have the butts and seats. You just aren't that good at marketing. So leverage the community that you have, I think, is hugely, hugely important. And within that community, I want to segue clumsily to how you build community now online, because I really want to spend a moment on this. I think it's so important. There's massive opportunity because honestly, restaurants being destination restaurants is becoming more and more difficult as the competition within all these kind of the burbs have cool restaurants now. So the downtown corridor, you're vulnerable. Like, you better figure out ways to be interesting. Now I think you can have virtual dinner and potentially allow people to interact with you at home, which expands the footprint that you have as far as that community. So take us there. What are you thinking about when you're talking to somebody about a virtual dinner?
Yeah, so like I said before, it's something that a lot of people haven't been doing. So sometimes I want to make sure, like, realistically, can you handle prepping all of these different things, these items, these meals, and making sure that when they're delivered, that guest is having a great experience? Are you going to be bringing in more people than you normally would if you were to have people in the actual restaurant? And what is that prep going to look like? And so there's a lot of different ways that you can do a virtual restaurant. I've been seeing, there was a chef in town. He was a fine dining chef. So he was like, my food's not going to travel correctly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give them those high-end ingredients that I know are so delicious. And I'm going to have a virtual cooking class. And then I'm going to show them how I plate these dinners up. And it's going to be more of an at-home experience. And then also, if you want to add on wine, beer, our local brands that we really love, and they're going to pair well with these dishes that we're creating, then there you go. So it's something where you have to really be able to shift and be nimble depending on what kind of restaurant you are, what you're capable of. Because in the end, putting on a virtual event is way more work than putting on an in-person event. And so you really have to weigh out, is the work going to really help me in the end? A lot of the restaurants in town that were closed, this is something that they had to do. And it was something where they had to shift right away. So, there was some that were doing, you get a free access to like our Facebook group that we're going to create, and then we're doing our demo in there. Or I saw a hotel in town that was like, hey, rent a room. Our restaurant will like bring up the food to you to your room, go out on the balcony, and then watch some live music that's happening around the pool. So like you were still having this like great experience. That wasn't as virtual as like you would think, but it's really taking into consideration the times and like what is going on, so that you don't have a big group inside of one restaurant, but they were doing something different to really make sure that they were getting, people into the rooms, people from their restaurant. So it was a cool experience. And then a lot of nonprofits, they're looking at how they can shift what they're doing, because a lot of them can't have 500 people in a room together for a gala right now. Right. So what I'm seeing is they're looking to local chefs that maybe their restaurants aren't open, or, they're just wanting to partner with them. And they're looking at them to do some sort of virtual meal that you can sign up for, and then it's delivered to you, or you can come pick it up before the event is going to start. So it's one of those things where if the logistics are going to work correctly, then do it. If not, let's find something else to help you, because in the end, you don't want to have a bad experience with your guests if you can't logistically play it out.
Yeah.
It's going to be more expensive too.
Sure. I think the big takeaway that I have from what you're talking about that I think is important is you have to create something enticing and dynamic, right? Because we take for granted how many ways that we can create micro interactions when we have a guest in our restaurant, to take them into this wine and tell them this story, and then interact with them and have that touch point, and take them this direction and introduce them to absinthe for the first time after dinner. Whatever those interactions are, we have the opportunity, because we're navigating them for 45 minutes for an hour. When you're thinking about the promotion, especially the virtual dinner, you have to think about all those potential touch points beforehand. You have to think about all the ways you're going to create this dynamic experience without knowing what those micro interactions are. And that's something that we take for granted in restaurants, because we have that opportunity. You need to think about that whole story that you're telling, and you need to do something that's enticing, because it can't just be the steak and wine dinner. It has to be the steak dinner, because you're working with the local rancher. The winemaker is going to be on the virtual dinner. We're going to show you a video of the vineyard. Like, that is the enticing piece that we need to create. Right. Because those touch points, we have to create them beforehand to even sell them on getting them to the dinner.
Exactly. So that's like a lot of prep work. So you have to think about that. And then the other thing is, can you do something that maybe is a little bit more simple, where it isn't where I'm delivering a full-on meal, but maybe it's, like you said, I'm cooking at my restaurant and showing you what I'm cooking, and then you have some wine, local wine that you're pairing it with, and that's what was delivered to your house before.
Right.
So like, what are those things that maybe could get delivered a week ahead and don't necessarily have to be timed out so perfectly? And then it goes back to partnering, you know, like, how can I really make this experience? Because people will pay to watch something like that and then purchase the wine as well. But like you said, it's that storytelling. So if you don't have that portion, if you're not able to do that, then partner with somebody that is a great speaker, you know, so that way you do have somebody that can really keep them engaged and have them have a great time when they're doing it from home.
Very, very important. I think that's super key. What you just said is really great. I've actually had the opportunity to MC for Sophie's Neighborhood. Look them up, people. Hosea Rosenberg's families. And we have a huge dinner coming up on October 17th. I don't ever plug. I don't know why I just went to plug, but I'm going to do it because they're amazing. For a good cause. On October 17th, coming at you, go check out Sophie's Neighborhood. We're doing a virtual dinner that is an extension of a dinner we did before, where we have 5 master somms and chefs like Alex Seidel, Jen Jasinski, Hosea Rosenberg, Dave Query cooking. And it's going to be one of the more dynamic nights. And I get to just babble for 2.5 hours and entertain people and pull stories out of people. And so that's what we need to do. That's what we need to do. I am excited about that. And I really, Ashley, really appreciate the thoughtfulness. You even got my brain going. I'm taking notes here too. I love it. This is great. Thank you for being on.
Yes, of course. Thanks for having me.
All right. Have a great rest of your day. All right, everyone, we're going to wrap this episode up. Amazing. Channing and Ashley, really, really great insights. I think it's important. I like how we just started with, what is the goal of a promotion? We have to start with the simple things. We take so many of the steps for granted and expect that we know. Slow down, and go through the process, because promotions work and you have an opportunity and now an obligation for the success of your business and your people to be dynamic when it comes to your ability to create those in-store and virtual promotions that entice your current, those ride or die regulars, or capturing new people that are interested and needing that human connection, even if it is through a virtual, even if it is through a digital cooking class, something like that. It's still hospitality. It really is. It's just not the way that we came up the industry. We need to continue to deliver that hospitality. People need it now more than ever, including the people that work within the restaurants. So great episode. This is day 5. Again, we got a few more days coming with Restaurant Marketing Week. Again, this has been amazing. We had Storytelling 101, digital presence, photo and video, social media best practices. And then tomorrow we're talking the future of PR media and finishing up with ad spends. So many great guests. I am so grateful to be able to speak with all of you. Thanks as always for tuning in. Cheers.